Are you too busy, too stressed out, unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello and welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. I'm Diane Randall, your host. Thank you so much for joining. And if you're new to the show, welcome. It's really exciting to have you here and listening. As you know, each episode of Balanced Living for Busy Professionals provides the listeners with the best life-changing wisdom, inner tools, strategies to help anyone break free of habits, patterns, and attitudes that may be keeping you stuck in place. In today's episode, I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Lara Heacock. She's a certified life coach and the leader of the Self-Kindness Revolution and the founder of Kind Over Matters. We're going to talk about kindness and what happens when you stop being so mean to yourself. Laura's going to give you some practical tips on self-kindness and tell you how you can improve your confidence, your balance, and navigate through life's transitions. I love Laura's tagline. She says, because life really does get better when you are kind to yourself. Welcome, Lara Heacock.
Thank you, Diane. So excited to be here.
I am excited that you're here talking about a subject that many people don't really think about. You think about it for others, but you don't think about self-kindness for yourself. So it's just so awesome when I get the opportunity to talk to someone and we have a conversation about going inside to take care of ourselves. So welcome.
Thank you.
And just to get a framework for the listeners, what is self-kindness? I know we know intellectually, but what does it really mean, self-kindness?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it means a couple of things. It means treating myself the way I would treat somebody that I care about. So a best friend, a spouse, a partner, anybody that is someone close to you in your inner circle. It's really striving to treat myself in that same way. And it can mean anything from, the simple choice to go to bed at a time that allows me to get enough sleep, all the way to the most difficult choices of setting some boundaries, speaking up in a situation that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable, but really making sure that how I show up in the world is reflective of, who I want to be and in a way to be kind to myself.
I love that, how I show up in the world. I love it. And I always say the more you heal and release all those things that just don't support you, it does allow you to show up in the world.
Yeah, it does. I will tell you that medically, my blood pressure is lower since I started living this way. Emotionally, my stress level is lower. And I still, by no means am I preaching perfection. I don't believe in perfection at all, but I am preaching the benefit of the change. I still get stressed. I still get overwhelmed, but I know what to do and I know the signs of it. And I know when I'm getting stressed, how I can navigate through it by coming back to self-kindness and coming back to taking care of myself and coming back to who do I want to be in the world and am I showing up in that way?
I love that. So, Laura, why are so many of us, we're way better at being kind to other people than we are to ourselves? Why is that?
I think there's a few answers. I think, in the really large global sense, we live in this world that preaches go, 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 more, you have to be an achiever. We all look for all of these external sources of validation. And, sometimes the being kind to others can be one of those ways of seeking external validation, but there's no social system or there's no educational system for how to treat yourself and how to show up in the world. And we end up living in the most over-medicated, unhealthy society that has ever existed on this planet. And some simple changes to how we treat ourselves and how we take care of ourselves on a daily basis absolutely have the power to make, a collective change in the world.
It's so interesting that you say that. I've been teaching workshops for the past 5.5 years, and the workshops I teach are aligned with my intention for the show, which are inner strategies and tools to help people live their life better. And what I tell my participants all the time, nobody teaches us how to live. Nobody teaches us how to be kind to ourselves. Nobody teaches us how to love ourselves. So it's so awesome that people like you and others actually are doing that work to say, you don't need to buy anything. You have everything you need inside of you. I'm just here to remind you of that.
Yeah. Yeah, to help you find it. I think the world teaches us the exact opposite of, the tools that we need to actually feel good about ourselves on a daily basis. I like to say that, I help my clients live a life that actually feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good on the outside, because the world teaches us how to be externally focused and how to have all the stuff and buy all the things and, do all the things. We have this glorification of busy in our society, and nobody actually teaches you the things that you need to genuinely feel good about your life, getting up every morning.
That feel goodness starts on the inside out. But like you said, we're so externally focused. We don't get that. We think we need something to make us feel good or someone to make us feel good and whole. When the truth is, it's really inside of all of us all the time. We just need to, I always say, uncover it.
Yeah. It's just learning how to access it. You're absolutely right.
So how does setting boundaries fit into this? Because I taught a workshop last week and I told my participants, and that's why this interview was just so beautiful and timely. I told my participants the best thing you can do for yourself, the first thing was to be kind to yourself.
Awesome. So boundaries are, I like to call them the B word. I wrote a blog post in the past couple of months, and the title of it was actually the B word. Because I think for most people, you kind of get that automatic recoil. I used to get that automatic recoil. I used to, be the person that said yes to everything and was always there for everybody else, and then was kind of cranky about it because nobody ever was there for me. And a lot of that, what I learned was, I didn't set my own boundaries. I didn't manage my own energy. I didn't ask for help when I needed it. And I didn't say no when I was, over and above my capacity. So setting boundaries is a really important way to start to be kind to yourself, because it helps you to show up where you really, really want to in the way that you want to. So if it's really, really important to you to, be on the PTA or to show up and organize the bake sale at your kid's school, that might mean saying no to driving carpool an extra day, or, showing up for some overtime at work, or, helping out somebody on your team that's not able to meet their own deadlines. It might mean saying no to those things so that you can show up in the other places that are important. So the boundaries are what helps you prevent getting into that place of overwhelm, getting into that place of resentment. When we say yes to everything, we tend to really get to that place of being super resentful about you've got the running list in your head, right? Like, well, first I have to grocery shop, and then I have to clean, and then I have to pick up the kids, and then I have to do this extra project, and then I have to respond to my emails. When you actually set some boundaries and protect your time, you can be engaged and happy and actually joyful in the things that are most important to you. And the biggest secret is all that other stuff is going to be totally fine without you. I promise.
What I learned, it's so hard for a lot of people to set the boundaries. What I learned was two things actually last week. It's about having the courage to set those boundaries and really protect them. And it's also expressing your feelings around them. And I had someone say to me, I'm not good at expressing my feelings. I'm not used to expressing my feelings, and I'm not a good communicator. So that gave me a pause in terms of that you really, to be kind to yourself, to set those boundaries, that you really have to want to go inside and look at those things. For example, how can I talk about being kind to myself when I'm not willing to even, it's just so painful to go in and look at my life and to look at things. I would literally have to take a deep look inside of myself to look at kindness. What do you say to those people who find it hard to get there?
Yeah. So when you're talking about that lesson of, I'm not a good communicator, I don't talk about my emotions, I'm not good at, verbalizing them, explaining them, even acknowledging that they exist, I will tell you that probably every single one of my clients at some point in working together has said that to me. And the first step I say in that process is really honing that, I like to call it inner circle. I'm a big fan of the work of Dr. Brene Brown, and she is a shame and vulnerability researcher for if anyone isn't familiar with her. And she talks about, having that inner circle of people. I like to call them the ones in your life who have earned a seat at your table, the ones that will love you in your messiest moments and the ones that will cheer for you in your most proud moments. And one of the first practices I give to my clients is dipping your toe in to that vulnerability and finding somebody in your inner circle. Maybe it's a best friend, maybe it's a parent or a sibling or a partner, but dipping your toe into that vulnerability and starting to get comfortable with it, starting to have one conversation in the next 2 weeks that's a really vulnerable conversation with someone and start to build up that trust that you actually do have the support system, that you can go into these internal, scary, difficult places and they're going to love you anyway. They're probably going to love you in a much more expansive capacity because you're giving them that opportunity.
And like you said, it may not be family. It may be other people. It may be like-minded people outside of your home. It's just looking for those people that will support you in what you want to do. So you could find possibly a support group or something to support you. There's so many groups out there. There's so many things out there for whatever we want these days, which I feel is very great. Now, when you have these clients who they hear you and that was something that you gave them, what other tools can you give the listeners who say, you know what, I like to do those things, but I'm so busy.
So busy to do any kind of support group. Totally hear that. I say find one person in your life where you feel safe. Who would you call if your car broke down along the side of the road and you needed, company waiting for the tow truck? Who would you call if, you were too sick to cook yourself dinner? Find the place where you feel safest and dip your toe in there with that person. If you're way, way, way too busy, and, I'm raising my hand on this one, if part of the reason that you're way too busy is because boundaries are a challenge for you and you find yourself falling into some people-pleasing habits and you say yes to everything that you're asked to do, my favorite way to start to set boundaries is by pausing. A lot of people have probably seen the internet meme that says no is a complete sentence. Yes, absolutely. I 100% believe in that. I 100% support that. However, when you are so not used to saying no and your life has been, created around this saying yes and this people pleasing habit, going from yes to everything to a no can be really hard. So where I start people out is by pausing. And I recommend that you don't ever say yes or no to anything in the moment. You simply respond with hey, thanks for the invitation. Let me get back to you. Because even if it is a total all caps yes in the moment, it's going to be an all caps yes the next day. And if you're feeling any uncertainty, often the anxiety of being on the spot, we can't say no in that moment. So giving yourself that 24 hours to just go back and say, hey, you know what? Thanks so much. Let me check my schedule. Let me see if this is doable for me. I'll let you know tomorrow. You're buying yourself the time and you're releasing that anxiety of the moment. And then you can get to a point where you're calm and composed and you can respond with your truth. So that's the first step I use to set boundaries and to start saying no when you're used to showing up as a people pleaser and saying yes to everything.
Wow. I love that.
Pause.
I love that. I get an opportunity to pause. I'll get back to you. I love that. It certainly gives you an opportunity to pause. As I remember in the past, I would say yes or no so quickly then I'd have to come back, and after I thought about what this person asked me and I processed it, I changed my mind because of blah, blah, blah versus, pausing is it just gives you a time to just process what was just asked, at least gives your brain a chance to process it and make a decision if this is something you want. That is an awesome suggestion. I love that.
Yeah. I know how scary it feels to start thinking about, you want to set these boundaries, but the idea of just saying a flat out no to somebody it's petrifying and it can stop you in your tracks, and that's okay. I also think that if you go too far too fast, you're not as likely to maintain the new habit. So I am all about baby steps. And this pause technique is the first baby step that will help you start to actually be able to say no and set those boundaries. Knowing that you have the freedom to not have to go straight from yes to everything to no to everything is really an opening idea.
I hear you. It's more about, like you said, just saying yes or no. It's the communication. It's the trust. It's the discomfort with even approaching someone like that. And I've literally learned so much from my participants because you meet people where they are, and every person is at a different place. But to see someone and to hear someone say, I've had years of practice myself, but to hear someone say, you know what, I'm not good with my feelings. And that is like where you really need to start, is getting in touch with your feelings around what you really want. And that was really a little aha moment for me, because I've been doing this stuff for so long. I just had not thought about it, in that way of setting boundaries. There's a lot of deep work that needs to be done before you even say, no, I'm not doing that. I can't do that.
If you try and skip through that middle, the messy middle that you're referring to, it's not going to stick. It's going to be one more thing that instead of it being a positive, self-kindness thing that you've done in your life, it's going to go on the I failed at that list. So if you're not good at communicating your feelings, and you're not good at setting boundaries, and you're not good at saying no, let yourself off the hook. All you have to do is pause. Pause for a day. Let yourself figure out your feelings on it. Let yourself figure out if it's a yes or a no, and then respond.
Now, many people look in the mirror and they don't like what they see. They say horrible, horrible things about themselves when nobody's looking or listening. So what do you say to someone that just really, 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 they just don't feel good about themselves at all?
So I come from the school of thought that I believe it's the Martin Luther King Jr. quote, hate does not drive out hate, only love can do that. So we all have an internal voice, and sometimes it can be a critic. And I actually refer to it that way, as the inner critic. I don't believe in calling it names. There are people out there that will teach you to, yell at the monster inside your head and do all those things. But I personally believe that, if hating ourselves could silence that voice, we'd all be living, on cloud nine right now. I just don't believe that it works. So I prefer to take a love-based approach. And when that inner critic comes up, and, maybe it's the fear of, I'm taking a big risk and I don't know what to do, and I'm feeling super scared, or maybe it's just, gosh, I'm not really feeling happy about, how I'm showing up in this situation, or, whatever it is. But whenever you hear that internal critic, or that, that negative dialogue going on in your head, one of my favorite practices, again, and, a lot of this comes back to pause, take a moment when you hear that voice and just put a hand on your heart, and actually skin to skin if you can, but put your hand over your heart, take a breath with that, take a moment, maybe close your eyes if you can, and just tell it, thank you. Thank you. I know you're trying to protect me in this moment, because our critic is actually there to try and keep us safe and to have us not, to not fail or to not take a risk that might not work out. So thank you. I love you. I've got this. So that critic, you can actually engage with it, and you can engage with it in a very love-based way. You can acknowledge it for being there. You can let it know that you understand it's trying to help you. Thank you for trying to help me. I love you for trying to help me. But then you can engage that rational part of your brain, and you can let it know, I've got this. And the key is not, just I don't believe in, any approach other than one that's love-based. I also don't believe in perfection or fearlessness. I think that what we can do that best serves us on the planet is to learn how to work with that fear and learn to work with that inner critic. Because if you expect it to go away, in 40 years, mine hasn't gone away. So if someone has, I'd like to talk to them. But, when we expect it to go away, we tend to get, discouraged by, I'm still scared. It's okay to still be scared, but hand on heart, thank you, I love you, I've got this. Feel it, hear it, acknowledge it, move forward anyway.
Lara, that is so beautiful. I love what you just said about how to work with the inner critic, because it's not going away. And I think that's so important to tell the listeners, because some people or many people think you got to shut it off. I just can't shut it off. But what I hear you saying is it's not about shutting it off.
No, and I hear so many people that, think that there's something wrong with them because they still feel this way. I've reached this age. I've done this much work. I've gone to therapy. I've worked with a coach, and I still feel this. I still feel this way. I still have this inner critic voice. I still feel scared. I'm not fearless yet. And it just becomes another form of perfectionism and self-punishment, really, when the kindest and quite frankly, the most reality-based approach is to recognize that this is just a part of who we are. At the most fundamental level, if we didn't have fear, we would all be walking into traffic and getting hit by cars. Fear's there. It's not going anywhere. It is hardwired into us for millions of years of evolution. It's a little bit, we've got a little more of it than we need now in 2017. So just recognizing that it's there and it's okay that it's there, and it doesn't have to stop you. Thank you. I love you. I've got this. It's okay. I can move forward anyway. I know you're here. It's totally cool. I'm going to go do this big thing anyway.
Lara, I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom, your expert advice, and the tools you've given us on self-kindness and how we can just be better to ourselves. I think you've given us all the information that we need to get started. So if someone wanted to get started right away and they look in the mirror in the morning, and what I hear you saying is put your hand over your heart and just say, I love you.
Thank you. I love you. I've got this. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being a guest on the Balanced Living for Busy Professionals podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been so great to be here.
I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think about this episode. Leave your comments or voicemail on the Balanced Living for Busy Professionals website. And you can also leave your feedback on iTunes. Your feedback helps us to bring you the best topics and information that you want to hear, information that can help you change your life from the inside out, no matter how busy your schedule.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.